I remember the way the music thumped in my ears that night, the bright neon lights bouncing off the polished floors, and the way my hand lingered on someone else's for just a heartbeat too long. That heartbeat would come back to haunt me, but I didn't know it then. I had left him, my husband, my safe harbor, standing by the champagne table, smiling politely at our coworkers while I chased the thrill of someone else's attention. It had started innocuously enough. The office gala was the kind of event that made my skin crawl. Rigid suits, forced laughter, and endless small talk about quarterly targets. My husband, Daniel, always enjoyed these gatherings more than I did, and that's why I told myself I would be fine. "I'll just stay for a bit," I had whispered to him, pressing a kiss to his temple. "I'll be back before the end." Then I met him, Ethan, the so-called finance whiz, tall, impeccably dressed, with a smile that seemed to understand all my unspoken doubts. He laughed at my jokes, leaned just slightly closer than etiquette allowed, and suddenly the night felt electric. Daniel, meanwhile, was across the room, congratulating someone on their promotion, unaware that I was already slipping away. Happened so fast. One drink led to another. One conversation led to whispered confidences. By the time I noticed the hour, Ethan was taking my hand, guiding me to a quieter corner of the venue. The city lights spilled through the windows, painting our shadows long and intimate across the polished floor. And in that moment, I believed that leaving Daniel for a little thrill was harmless, just a momentary escape from the comfortable life we'd settled into. Daniel never saw me leave. When I returned home the next morning, the memory of Ethan's touch lingered on my skin, like a secret I couldn't erase. I tried to act normal, but the guilt settled in my chest like a stone. Daniel greeted me with a tired smile, coffee in hand, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath my carefully constructed calm. I didn't see the signs immediately. A missed glance, a slight hesitation in his voice, a question that lingered too long before it was asked. "Everything okay at the party?" he asked, and I lied smoothly, effortlessly. "Yeah, it was fine. Fun even. Nothing exciting happened." But Daniel was no fool. He had that quiet intuition, the way he noticed things without forcing his attention on them. The unease in his eyes stayed with me, even when he smiled. I tried to push it down, push him away from noticing, but guilt has a way of reaching further than any lie. Weeks passed. Ethan faded from my thoughts, replaced by the uneasy rhythm of our everyday life. Or so I tried to convince myself. And then it happened. Daniel came home early one Friday evening, carrying a thin envelope and a look that made my stomach tighten. "I think we need to talk," he said, setting the envelope on the kitchen counter. His hands were steady, but there was an intensity in his gaze that made me feel like the air had been sucked out of the room. I laughed nervously. "About what?" He didn't answer immediately. He just slid the envelope toward me. "I found something. I think you deserve to see it." Inside were printed screenshots of conversations, emails, even a booking confirmation, details that proved Ethan was not the man I thought he was. Not only had he lied about his career, but he was also in a relationship. A girlfriend named Laura, someone who apparently thought she could trust him. My heart plummeted. Guilt, fear, shame. They all collided in a wave that left me breathless. I wanted to look away, to push the envelope off the counter, to pretend none of it existed. But Daniel's eyes held mine, steady and unflinching, demanding honesty I wasn't ready to give. I didn't know," I whispered, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. Daniel shook his head slowly. "You didn't know, or you didn't care to know." His voice was calm, but there was a fracture in it, a quiet heartbreak that cut deeper than any yelling could. The next few days were unbearable. Daniel stayed in the house, but the space between us had transformed into a canyon. I could hear him moving around in the kitchen, making coffee, flipping through papers, but every step felt deliberate, measured, like he was testing how much I had hurt him. I tried to apologize, tried to explain, but words felt empty. Ethan had been a moment, a thrill, a distraction, but the damage he had done to my life, to the life Daniel and I had built together, was permanent. I watched Daniel from across the living room as he sat quietly, staring at the floor, his hands clasped together. It was the look of a man betrayed, not in a storybook sense, but in the raw, human way that pierces your soul and leaves scars you can't see. Finally, Daniel spoke. "Do you love him?" His voice was low, almost a whisper. Froze. "No. Of course not. I don't even know him like that." He held up a hand, cutting me off. "Do you love me?" The question was simple, but it carried the weight of every sleepless night I'd caused him. Every lie, every whispered confidence I had thought harmless, every choice I had made in pursuit of something fleeting. "I do," I said, voice breaking. "I love you. I always have." He looked at me for a long time. Then finally he spoke again. "Then prove it. Because love isn't about words. It's about trust. And you broke mine." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I wanted to reach out to take him in my arms, but I could see that the distance was not just physical. It was something deeper. A fracture that required more than apologies. It required time, patience, and a willingness to rebuild something that I had almost destroyed. The days turned into weeks. Daniel didn't leave me, but he also didn't rush forgiveness. He went to work, came home, and lived alongside me in silence. Every small gesture, a cup of tea left on the counter, a text asking if I had eaten, a hand brushed against mine in passing, was a test, a bridge slowly being rebuilt. And I learned to be patient. I learned to confront my own desires, my own recklessness, and the part of me that sought validation outside of the life I had vowed to protect. I confessed everything to Daniel. Not just the obvious betrayal, but the thoughts, the fantasies, the moments of weakness. And he listened, not with anger, but with a quiet determination that spoke louder than any shout. Months later, the memory of Ethan had faded, but the lessons remained. Daniel and I would never forget that night, that betrayal, that fracture, but we had chosen to confront it together. Trust had to be rebuilt, slowly, brick by brick, and it was hard. Some nights it felt impossible. Some nights, the memory of my own recklessness gnawed at me like a relentless shadow. But then Daniel would smile at me in that quiet, knowing way that only he could, and I would remember why I had stayed. Not because the thrill had been gone, but because love, real love, is never easy. It is messy, painful, and fragile. And sometimes, it is only when we confront our own betrayals that we truly understand what it means to hold someone's heart as sacred. And in that understanding we began again.